Hey there. If you can hear me, I would appreciate you letting me know. If you could let me know if we're heard over there on YouTube Live or on Facebook Live, that'd be great. So we'll get started here in just a moment. I'm trying to configure the sound just a little bit different so that it sounds a little bit better and that it won't be as just making it a little more clear, I guess. So if you're able to hear me, that'd be great. We'll get started here. So we're working on the March challenge. And so that is a portrait. And so we started last week, and I just started working on creating this Grizzle Method or looking for the shadows. And that seems to, oh, thank you, Deb. Deb is over there on YouTube Live. Deb Coloring. So appreciate you joining us. So what I started doing is, this is typically the way I start portraits, is I create a Grizzle method. So what is a Grizzle? It's usually a monochromatic rendering of values. And so I'm looking for the darkest values first, and then I'm going into the lighter values after that. And so that's what I did here. And I started with the nose. Because I'm primarily focusing on noses right now anyway. So, hey, Jan, good morning. Jan is over there under the Fine Art Cafe on YouTube. So I want to keep focusing on this value structure of the entire piece, but I'm going to move to the mouth here in a moment. And then we'll move up to the eyes. Not sure how much color we'll get in here, but we will focus on color. Maybe not today. I'm not sure yet, but I'm planning on going maybe a little over an hour. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. But I would like to show you, especially if you're new to portraits and drawing or rendering with colored pencil. And what I mean by new, what do I mean by new? I mean someone who has not been doing this for very long or for many hours. So that could be a month for some people. That could be 10 years for others, because maybe you're working at other things and you don't have as long to spend on your craft as do some. So oh, okay. So Deb coloring you that so you're Deborah that lives in New York, is that right? I just want to make sure that you're staying in New York right now. Is this the Deborah I'm thinking of? I think it is. Welcome to Denmark, Lisbeth. Appreciate you joining us over there on YouTube Live. Awesome. Good to have you here. Okay, Deb. I wasn't real sure about your YouTube handle. Didn't know that. So nice. Good job. Well, welcome. Glad you joined us. See, for Deb and I, and for Jan, maybe others, it's not real early here, so it's not a bad time to start doing this. 10 a.m. Is like middle morning or late morning, really, for me and for all of us that are over here on the East. coast or in the east in some form or fashion. So I know for those over there in California, it's 7 o'clock, which for me, I love. I love early morning, but I know mornings aren't for everyone, but they are for me. If I could get up at 4 a.m. every morning, I would. I like 5 o'clock, though. Love 5 o'clock. Hey, Cassandra, thanks for joining over there on YouTube Live. And Angel, thanks for joining. Awesome. So if you're over on Facebook, if you could let me know that you're able to hear us, that would be helpful as well. Hey, Jack, good to see you out here as well. And Jack is over there on YouTube Live. Awesome. Welcome to the stream. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sharpen this pencil. You may look at that and you may say, why in the world is he sharpening that pencil? It looks sharp enough. Well, that depends on where you are in the drawing process. It's not sharp enough right now, so. Yeah, I appreciate that reminder, Deborah. Yeah, if you're brand new to the channel, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe. If you've not liked the video yet, I would appreciate that as well. If you like the video, it means a lot to me if you do that. Helps the algorithm as well, so it helps me out. So it means a lot. Thank you. All right. So I'm looking for the darkest areas. The darkest areas typically on a portrait, when we're looking at the mouth in particular here, it's going to be the corners of the mouth. So that will be my darkest value. So then what does that mean to me? It means that I need to lighten up my pressure when working in layers like this. Lighten up that pressure as I move towards the middle of the mouth. Give me some boundary marks under here by drawing this line out just a little bit more so I can see it. I'm going to increase some of the layers that I put down in this corner over here so that it's darker, like we just talked about. So I don't have to press hard to make that darker. All I have to do, let me zoom back out, maybe that might help. You can see my whole hand a little bit. But all I have to do here is add a few more strokes. And that will create the illusion over here that this is a little bit darker because we're using one value right now. Later on, it will be darker because we will add different colors on top. But for right now, we're going to create darker areas with one pencil. And typically the way that I do that is by adding more pencil strokes to one particular area. So I've got a shadow shape right in here. Yeah, so if you're working on the March challenge, that's awesome. I love that. And if you're using the March challenge to work on noses, that's a great thing to do. If you're working on eyes, that's also a good thing to do. I think Angel Stewart, I think she said that that's what she's doing, working on eyes. So I think this portrait lends itself to eye studies or nose studies or mouth study, any one of those things. And it's just a good way to practice and to get get some drawing time. When you've got a challenge, also, there's another benefit to it. And when it's in a group setting like this, because there's many other students, artists, whatever you want to call us, who are doing the challenge at the same time. And so you get to see their take on the rendering of the challenge. And I think that's an awesome thing to be able to be a part of, because they may be doing something that is interesting to you or helpful, and it may help you to see something that maybe you didn't see before. So I love that. If you are working on it only by yourself, that's still a good thing, but there's a little more that you can benefit from. There's more benefit in seeing what others are doing as well, I think. All right, I'm just looking for these shadow shapes right now. So I'm trying not to create a line to outline where the lips are. At the same time, I want to maintain. I need to move my camera over. I want to maintain a little bit of that line, though, so that I know, where I am in the structure of the lips. If I only add shading in there and then I get rid of some of those boundary marks, then I've got a problem doing that, because I can create another problem for myself because I don't know where the lips are. So that wouldn't be a good thing to do either. The top lip is always going to be darker, nearly always going to be darker than the bottom lip, because of that particular plane is angled downward, and so the light has less chance of hitting the top lip. And then because the bottom lip jets outward, it catches the light. And so it's going to be a little brighter than the top lip. So again, if you're able to see the stream and hear the audio over on Facebook, if someone could please let me know if you're able to, that would be helpful. That way I know that we're actually streaming over there. And then I'll quit worrying about it. I'm actually not all that worried about it, but a little bit. We're also streaming on Twitter live as well, but I don't really think anyone watches over there on Twitter, so. There's a little bit of foreshortening going on in the mouth right here. Oh, thanks, Roz. So, Roz, I want to reply back to Roz. She sent me this, her rendering of the March challenge, and it looks fantastic. It looks so good. She did a fantastic job, and her hair on the portrait looks so lifelike. It's really great. So thanks. So Cheryl says she'll watch on Twitter if I want her to. No, you don't need to do that, Cheryl. I'm thinking about stopping that stream anyway. I did stop it for a while. maybe last year or something when I was doing this stream more, and then I just added it again recently just to see what would happen. I don't know. I guess I was feeling bored. But anyway, yeah, Roz, you did such an exceptional job on your portrait. Love it. Okay, so we'll get this shadow to move down this side of the mouth as we get closer towards the edge of the face. That's what we're looking for right there. Now I'm turning the pencil in my hand in order to maintain a sharp point on it. All right, I'm going to use my kneaded eraser, and I'll zoom in here just a little bit so you guys can see this better, what I'm doing here. And I'm just going to remove a little bit right in here so that this has sort of a uniform look. And I'm trying to oversimplify what I'm doing. I'm thinking of it as very simplistically right now, trying not to get hung up on details for right now. That will come later after we get all of these values that are darker established. Even though they're not as dark as they're going to be, I at least want them to be stated. I want them to be in here, and then we'll work on how dark they are later on. And then we'll work on variations and differences in where they are. Because we've got, shadows within shadows, and all of those things make a difference. And at the beginning, though, if I can oversimplify it and just say, okay, this is a shadow, I'm not going to worry about precisely how dark a shadow may be, but generally how dark it may be, then I've just made it easier on myself. And that's the reason why I start out with a Grizzle Method. It's not, there's not a real complicated reason for it other than that. It just makes it easier to do the entire drawing if you're looking for the darkest values first. I'll switch my pencil out. I've got 2 of these burnt sienna pencils, and I can switch it out and use one that's a little sharper. It saves me a little bit of time, a little bit of energy and mental energy, because I'm focused in one area, thinking about what I'm doing in one area, and then I don't have to stop and sharpen my pencil. I can just keep going. So that does help. If you have any questions about anything that we're doing right now, or portraits in particular, or anything at all regarding colored pencil or drawing, you can ask in the chat. I have a transcription to audio enabled, so I hear what you type in the chat. So as long as you spell everything pretty close, then that should give me the audio. Yeah, thanks, Holly. Yeah, it does save a lot of time to have 2 pencils sharpened. That's what she's talking about over there on YouTube. Okay, just creating that little darker area right here on the mouth. It's going to be darker over here as well, and it will be darker on this side than it is on this side. I've got a highlight right over here as well, but the highlight will still be darker than this area for the most part because we're in the shadow over here on this left-hand side. I'm barely grazing the surface, and especially when I go a little bit faster with my pencil stroke, I'm doing this. I'm rotating it like that and hitting the pencil or hitting the paper one time. Lifting my stroke back up and hitting the pencil, or hitting the paper with my pencil in one direction. I'm not always doing that, but like right now I'm doing that. When I speed up that stroke a little bit, that's what I'm doing because I want to protect the tooth of the paper, and that does that very well. If I go back and forth, zigzag back and forth, then I risk damaging the tooth and bearing down real hard because there's something that happens. It kind of signals to my brain, okay, I'm just going to scribble, and so I don't want to scribble. That's the last thing I want to do. Okay. And as many of you already know, but I'm going to state it again, I like this linear kind of stroke, real tight hatching. That's a kind of stroke making that I like, mark making. And I think it gives you very even coverage. I'm not opposed to doing the little circles. I just think for me, it doesn't fit my temperament, and it just takes a long time to fill an area. Yeah, so Lisbeth is asking, how did I make the decision to use this color that I'm using? And actually, what I'm doing is I'm using burnt sienna, and so I could have used a dark indigo. And on my self portrait, you're talking about using dark indigo. I actually started with Caput Mortem on that one, and then I went to dark indigo. But yeah, so for this one, I could have used dark indigo. I could have used Caput Mortem as well. To me, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. I mean, you can make just about any color work. And for the grizzly or for your underpainting of getting that dark value structure set on the drawing, then I think what's more important than the color is the value. So picking a dark value and starting with that, I think that's more important. So Salmia is asking what paper this is on. This is on warm white in Stonehenge. So Stonehenge paper. Knowing nothing. So Lori says, knowing nothing about portraiture, why are you using burnt sienna? Is it closest to skin color? It is very close to skin color. That is part of the reason as well. But that's not really the reason. It's a dark value. And I like the color. And I think for this composition, if you look at my reference, I see a lot of dark tones. And this is what I'm using right here. So I see a lot of dark tones right in here. And so I'm trying to emulate that. So good questions. Great. I love them. All right. I may have missed somebody, and I'm sorry if I did. Let's see here. So Deborah's asking, how about for layering, linear stroke or round like strokes? And no, again, I still like the linear stroke. I just think it gives you the most even coverage. And it's just easy. And it's easy to learn. It's easy not only to learn, but to master. So once you learn how to use a linear stroke to create smooth transitions, I mean, I would argue that this is a smooth transition from a lighter value to a darker value and then back again. Once you learn how to do that, then everything else becomes easier, I feel like. And so all I have to do let me zoom back out so you can see this maybe better. But all I have to do over here now to create a smooth look to the skin, I was going in this direction, right? Let me see if I can show my whole hand here so you can see what I'm doing. We got to shade this part up here anyway. So I was going in this direction. Down here on the mouth, I'm doing it on the eye. And I'm using a very, very light touch. And then I paused and I moved my hand a little bit. And now I'm going in a separate direction. And when I do that, and if I keep doing that, and if I do it very evenly across the whole area, and start in one spot, and I do that very evenly, then what will happen is I'll create a very smooth transition. Maybe not 2 times, maybe not 3, but if I keep working at it and I keep going, then I will. So that's what I'm doing down here on the mouth. And I'm not paying a whole lot of attention to how far I'm going over there, but I am down here, and I can clean that up with an eraser here in a minute. But the point is this: I feel like you're going to get more coverage quicker by using that linear stroke. At the same time, once in a while, you'll have to come back in here like I am right now. Let me zoom in again. But sometimes you'll have little irregularities in the paper surface. So you might notice, I'm hoping it shows up on camera. Maybe up here's a good one. A little bit of an irregular area. Looks like there's a little bit of scratch or something like that on the paper surface, right? Hopefully you can see that. And so I can take a moment and just color that in. Okay. And if that doesn't do it, then I can use my kneaded eraser and some overlapping strokes and get rid of that. But I think that did it pretty much. So same thing can happen down here or anywhere else on the drawing. So I've got pretty much a static value right in here. So I want to make this just a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a few more strokes down here than what I have right now. And then right down here, it's a little bit darker. Not a lot, just a little bit for right now, because I don't want to fill in all the tooth. I want to reserve some tooth on the paper for more color on top, right? When we start adding color, then I want some room for that. I'll make sure I didn't miss any other questions here. I don't think so. Doesn't look like it. So, okay. So this area right here, I can remove that. And yeah, somebody mentioned, I think it was Elizabeth mentioned that I'm working on my self-portrait. And I am. So if you're able to join that, I'm trying to start generally around 9 p.m. Eastern time at night. So that's about when I will start that. So you can catch it around that time. Sometimes it might be a little bit later, though. But that's generally when I'll start that. Okay, now let's do this. Let's look here. We add a little more value up here to the mouth and the lips. Then we'll move up to the eyes. You guys have some great questions today. I love that. Okay. Move just a little bit of that. Come back over here. And a little darker area right here. Because of the way that that mouth curves and turns. In that spot. This is also the reason why it's darker right under here. And then a little bit of darkness over here on the lips because of the way those are curved. And, you know, you're thinking, I'm always wanting to think about that three-dimensional look of each of these features and where they are positioned on the face and how they move within the planes of the overall head. They're either going to be moving outward or moving inward. If we think of contours and contour lines with regard to how each feature is aligned in the head, on the head, then they're either moving away from something or they are, they're either going back towards the overall mass of the head, or they're not, or they're going in the opposite direction, moving away from it. So inward or outward, that kind of thing. And that's the way I want to think about it. So if you think of contours, they're doing something. They're not just typically, most of the time, they're not just staying still, not just a flat surface at all. That's usually not what we're seeing. Even areas that we think might be flat. This area right here, for example, if you'd say, oh, this is flat right here, right next to the cheek right here on the side of the nose where we're meeting the face. Well, the face is not flat, it's not a box. So even this cheek, it's moving upward right in here. There's a contour happening right there. So I want to think about that as I'm creating this value over here. There's some movement there. And if I'm able to depict movement at all, then that's only going to enhance the entire drawing. And so I want to think about what the value is doing wherever I am, whatever it is, that I'm drawing. I want to think about that. Now, there's a little part of the lip down here that sticks out just a little bit, part of the skin on the lip that's sticking out a little bit. And I don't know that that's something that's real necessary to capture a whole lot, maybe a little bit. But I think I will not worry about it too much until I start adding color. So for right now, I'm not going to actually draw that. I'm just going to leave it alone for the moment. Okay, let me do this. Look at that overall value. I think it's fine. All right. So I'm going to move up to the eye. And I'm going to take away just a little bit right here. There we go. Maybe a little bit of that. Okay. All right. That might be a little dark right there. I'll at least restate that and think more about the position of that. Angel Stewart. She's talking about using an old toothbrush to blend. Never thought of that. I've never thought of that. So I can see how that would work, though, in some ways, because especially if you're using a stiff bristled brush, maybe. I don't know. Interesting. I've never thought of that. You have to let us know how that works. You're saying it works well, huh? It's interesting. I could see how that would be very interesting and to do on the mouth as you're working on the mouth. Maybe if you even have teeth that you're drawing. I'm just having fun. Oh, you used a brand new brush. Okay. Okay. And not wet, I hope. No water on it. Yeah. So Cheryl's talking about using a paintbrush after the paper is saturated. Yeah, absolutely. It works really well. Not wet. Okay. That's good to hear, Angel. So a dry brush. Yeah. I could see that working. I don't see that it's all that much different, right, than using the stiff bristled brush that I use, that other artists use. You know, it's a brush. So I've seen people get so worked up about which which toothbrush, not toothbrush, which paintbrush to use. See, Angel, you got me thinking toothbrushes now. Which paintbrush? And I don't know that the brush matters as much as the use of it, the application of it. So Angel, Salmi is asking, which paper are you using the toothbrush on? We got a new product, a toothbrush to use on something. So which paper? Okay. Now I notice there's a little bit of scratchiness happening with this pencil at the moment. So I'm going to rake it across my sand block for a second just to get rid of that little scratchiness on that little part of the surface. Sometimes that happens. Still happening. So I'm going to turn it just a little bit. And then I'm going to remember Still happening. I'm going to sharpen it. Might as well sharpen my second pencil as well. Sometimes you just can't get rid of that little scratchiness that happens. It happens to every pencil. Once in a while, you hear someone say, "I've never had that happen to this type of pencil," but I've had it happen to just about every pencil if I stop and think about it. So doesn't mean that there's just something very defective, unless it's just all the way through the pencil. But all of them can do it, is my point. Usually just turning it just a little bit will get you to a little spot in the tip that is not scratchy anymore. But that doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to sharpen it, get rid of that spot. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes it's a pencil that will be scratchy all the way down. That's rare. That's very, very rare. In fact, I think that's only happened to me maybe once. I don't even remember which pencil it was that did that. I try not to hold grudges against my pencils. If one of them does something naughty to me like that, I just forgive that pencil and I go on. And I don't think about it anymore. Getting more of that line that's the darkest. Put that in first. And then I will move to areas that are within the middle values a little bit. Going to add some dark value to the sclera there. And we'll do the same thing with the eye, the iris right there. There we go. Okay, let's do the same thing over here. Those pupils are rather large. I'll worry more about the exact structure of those later on. But for right now, I want to get some of the width in there, at least. We'll think about how big they are a little bit. And then right up at the top, I want to nearly match the value that I see over there in the darkest shadows over here on the right hand side at the very top. Much, much darker over there on top because of that thickness of the upper eyelid. It shades everything down below it. So it's shading the iris. It's shading part of the cornea, that invisible layer on top. And it's shading the sclera, the white of the eye, as well. So Angel says that she's using a multimedia paper, 120 pound paper, and that's a good, not a bad choice for a study, right? For a study, you don't want to use your best paper necessarily if you have a limited quantity of best paper or whatever. But yeah, it's a good choice. Okay, it's probably enough right there. Come back over here and have a baseline to be able to look back at and say, okay, if this is that dark, then over here in the shadow, because this is the shadow side of the face, and everything over here is going to be much darker. Okay. Pull this down just a little bit. I don't want this eye to be larger than the other eye. And it could look like that, especially right now, due to the shadow over here. Get a little bit of that value right there coming down from the shading of how that upper lid, because of the volume, the thickness of the upper lid is shading the sclera, will have a shadow that hits it from the top down. Also, because of the roundness of the sclera, we're going to have shading over here towards the tear duct. It moves from this direction up. Same way over here. And it's going to be darker on this side of the eye because the highlight is really over here. The light is coming from this direction. So everything over here on the white of the eye is much, much darker than anything over here. Okay, let's see here. We have some subtle shading going on right here. I'm going to shade it just a little bit darker than what I want it for right now. It's an area that is very easy to make more subtle than what it even is. It's easy to be timid in this area and to think you don't want to shade it very dark and end up, making it much lighter than what it really is. But I like to shade it quite a bit darker at the beginning and then use a kneaded eraser and take most of it back off just to add a little bit of staining to this spot. It's going to be darker on top or just as dark in some areas. Okay. Take the kneaded eraser and remove some of that. Okay, now I'll get a little nitpicky right here. And some of that was getting a little weird looking. Here we go. So we got some flaws in the paper again, which happens. So not a big deal. Happens in every paper. I'm not going to throw out, my Stonehenge paper because it happened right here. It happens on every paper. Okay. There is a little bit of a line right there. And down here. Yeah, a little bit of a weird thing happening right there on the paper. Not a big deal. Not even going to worry about it. It's not worth my time. Because as I build up layers, that'll disappear. So I shouldn't hyper focus on areas that are going to be covered up later on anyway. I could hyper focus on that, but it's not going to help me any by doing that. It'll just make me waste a lot of time. Is all that will do if I focus on that area right now. Now, if it's showing up later on and I've got 8 layers in or something, or maybe even fewer than that, then yeah, maybe I need to think about it more and start compensating for it more. But for right now, I don't need to worry about it. Okay. Let me see here. A little crowded. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Asking what I'm using for the pencil sharpener. I'm using the AFMAT, which the reservoir is getting really full, apparently. I need to dump that reservoir, but that's what I use. I really like that one because I like that long, sharp point. There's just so many things you can do with a long, sharp point. And there's some more odd things happening on that paper surface even over there, but it's not a big deal. That just happens, like I said, with any paper. Now I'm going to typically have a darker area right here on the eye, in this eyelid, upper eyelid right there. You can usually always get away with that being darker right there in that area. And then right over here, this is typically darker as well than any other area. Now we are in a spot where the light coming from a window is hitting this side of the face. So as we look at the side plane of the nose, the light is starting to hit that area quite a bit. So this area right here turns and it goes upward. It becomes part of the side plane of the nose. And when it does that, it's reflecting light. I do want this area right here to meet this area right here. Okay. Angel, you'll have to tell us which brand of toothbrush you prefer for your drawings. I'm sure that's another thing that might matter, right? Whether it's soft or hard bristles or medium, and what brand it is that you prefer. You might start a trend, I tell you. All right. Oral B medium bristle. Okay. I knew she'd have that at the ready right there. So that's funny, Holly. Yeah, maybe one of the pencil companies will start designing their own toothbrush to be used for drawings. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Okay. Let's lighten up this area right in here just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, there we go. As long as you're having fun, right? All right, guys, that's what Angel's talking about. So I think some great things have happened when artists started experimenting, with tools and materials. That always happens. Somebody finds something that they like that works, and they start using it, and it solves a problem. That's how a lot of great things occur. You're scratching your own itch, and you stumble upon something that can benefit yourself, but then others also. So Who knows? Okay. Do this. Don't like the way that line is looking. There we go. Make that come out just a little bit more over here. That's a little bit better. Okay. Take a look at this. See what we're doing here. Okay. Right. Sometimes I think we think where it's easy to think that, oh, thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that compliment. But I think sometimes we start to think that, sometimes, some of this doesn't matter when we're looking at some of the angles on these features. And I would argue that it does matter, though, the small angles, um, because all of those things help with recognizability. So if you're drawing this and you want it to look like the person that you're trying to depict, then it does matter where you place, like the crease in the upper eyelid. There's an interval, there's a distance between that crease and where the eyelash line is, where it starts, where it ends. And the same thing is true with the angle at which the corners come together. There's an angle, and those matter when you want it to look like the individual. Okay, so this area on this other side is so much darker. The other thing that matters is where the eyebrows are as well. So there's an imaginary or an implied edge to the bottom of where the eyebrows are and the top. And our mind kind of fills in the gaps. If there are eyebrow hairs that are missing, then we're filling in the gaps with our mind. But still, when I look at this overall, if this were the finished eyebrow, it's really not. But if I look at it overall, then my mind tells me, okay, where's that bottom edge line, if you will, or an edge that helps us to know where this distance is from here to here. And it's created in our mind whenever we look at a collection of values that are grouped together. And so that's what's going on with the eyebrows. Doesn't mean that there always has to be some kind of edge like we have over here on the nose, where it's just an abrupt change in the value. Sometimes it can be less distinct, like it is over here in the eyebrow. So, Angel, you're saying when you point out tendencies during drawing, do you to do the quality work from the beginning? It really says that you, even when you start to falter, you recognize when you need to adjust. Very cool. Oh yeah. Oh, good observation there, Angel. Yeah. If you catch those things, sometimes I don't. I catch it later, catch it after the fact, and that's okay too. Sometimes we don't realize that we're creating some problems for ourselves sometimes when they happen, when they occur. And that's just part of the drawing process. It's not that there's a mistake going on when we do that. It just happens. That is part of what matters, is that we're able to catch it at some point, right? And we get better and better at recognizing areas that can be potential pitfalls, right? But doesn't mean we'll always catch them when we want to. But we get better at it, I think, as we progress and as we practice, you know. Okay, let me see if I can do a little bit more shading over here. Okay. I'm I'm laughing at Angel over there. Yeah, it can cause some anxiety or stress, right? Sometimes, um, but you just have to remember to be patient with yourself. You've done it before, and you can do it again. So you just have to remember that you're a professional and you'll work through the problems, because that's what we do as artists. We work through the problems, we work through the issues, and we keep getting better and better at recognizing the issues earlier. Right? I'd say the biggest problem, though, with starting in portraiture, or maybe any subject matter, is just not being patient with ourselves, and not allowing enough time to recognize when we are starting to have problems in the drawing, getting impatient and wanting it to go faster than what it is and what it can do. It can only go so fast. It can't be sped up, you know. Okay. Move back over here and look for areas now over here that are nearly equal in value to this side. And as I do that, when I approach areas that are nearly identical in value, so measuring how dark or light something is on this side versus the right side when I'm looking at the left, then most of the time, depending on where we are, most of the time I want to go just a little bit darker over here. I want to make it just a little bit darker. But we have to think about where this light is, what it's doing to the object that it's illuminating and creating shadows on. And so one of the things it's doing is it's hitting the face on this side, and then there's a concaved area right in here, and it's hitting the nose and hitting this raised part of the mouth, and then there's a concaved area on the other side of the nose, other side of the mouth, and then there's a raised area again. And so the light is hitting this raised area right in here, and then it's going back down on the other side. So I don't want everything to be dark over here on this side is my point. That wouldn't make sense, right? Because there is a subtle movement of light and dark that happens due to the contours and forms of the face of the head. Okay. I've got that pupil a little bit larger over there, I think. Looks like. Sometimes it's just very, very subtle shading in one direction or another that will help to create the illusion of width or depth or length or anything like that in the drawing. And so in features as well, like the eye might look like that it is wider than it needs to be or shorter than it needs to be. And it's just an illusion based on the shading. And so we can quickly modify that and get it back to an area that makes it look a little more wide or a little more like it's taller or something like that. So it doesn't take much sometimes. Not always. Sometimes it's just wrong, right? Sometimes we just interpreted it in a different way than what we wanted to. And so we have to go back and reinterpret what we were looking at and say, oh, maybe I do need a little more in one spot or another. I'm just adding a little more in one direction or the other. Very, very small modifications. And that can make a huge difference sometimes. Okay. This shadow coming from the side plane of the nose actually is extended out just a little bit more than what I've done already. I'm going to add quite a bit of this darker value right here in the upper eyelid. Need to pay attention to my time. I'd rather just keep drawing, but I can't forever. So we'll go a little bit longer here. But we gotta think about the time too. Okay. I'm going to shade that just like with this static kind of solid wall of value for just a moment, especially when it's lighter like this. I'm going to lose that up into the eyebrow somewhere and then come back away from that area. Turn my hand just a little bit. Hit it from a different angle. I'm going to go all the way down. Very, very light pressure. Overlap that just a little bit. Okay, and we're going to use our kneaded eraser and think about where all these contours are and kind of use it to draw with just a little bit. So come back in here, soften this up just by tapping that kneaded eraser. Okay, I come back in here and get really picky about some of this. Oh, Angel, thanks for joining. Awesome. All right. I understand if you have to go, so we'll let you take care of that. And thanks for being out here. telling us about that toothbrush method. Okay, so I'm going to come back in here and just remove some of this in certain spots. Make sure I keep this area around the eye much lighter. Relatively speaking, I want that part to be lighter. Let's take a look at it here. So I don't want this area to be all that much darker right there, because I want it to be slightly darker right in here instead. So now I can come back. I need to switch pencils here. Almost time to sharpen these guys. In fact, it is. There we go. Nice sharp pencil. That will give us the best and the most smooth gradation. Kind of opposite to what we thought, what we think in the beginning when we're starting. Often a new artist will think, no, I need a very dull pencil to create a smooth transition. But the opposite is true. You need a very sharp pencil for this technique. I want that area to be quite a bit darker right there. That represents an area that is more concaved, closer to the skull than anywhere else. So because of that, in this area, and so because of that, I want that to be a little bit darker, especially because of the position of where that light is. Okay. So this is the foundation of color on top, is working through these values and getting these values where we want them. Then we can add color on top of that, and the color has context. It has something to hang on to and to give it meaning. Otherwise, if we just create color for color's sake, then we can sometimes have a problem with depicting reality if we do that. Depending on the style that you're looking for, but that's the one I'm looking for. Okay, made that pupil come out just a little bit too much over here, so I can take that off. Getting a little closer there. All right. A little bit more right over here. Okay. So on this side of the eye, it's going to be quite a bit darker over here. Excuse me. And it will be on the other side. Over on the far right, or far left, rather. It's going to be quite a bit darker. This area right here is mostly in shadow, but there is a little bit of light hitting that area. But then as this light starts to turn, or this shape rather, in the upper eyelid starts to turn, then the light starts hitting that spot. Excuse me. Okay. It's a very subtle highlight surrounded by a lot of shadow. And there's a little bit of a wrinkle that comes down right in there. We often see that in that upper crease in the eyelid. And it's very, very subtle, but makes a little bit of a difference right there. And it's hard to show that sometimes, so it takes a little bit of effort to get that in there. I'll remove some of this. Okay. Now I want to redraw that. So we create this curve up here. Move that down just a little bit, and then shade right up above that so that all of that contour right there is connected to where that crease is. There we go. And then I can reestablish that little wrinkle I was talking about right there. Something weird happening with the paper right there. So I got to remove just a little bit of that. And I'm glad I'm using this sticky putty, because it can get in there really, really tight. Now, even though later on I may have to redraw part of that, it's important to kind of get that set the way that I want it right now, so that I can keep focusing on it later on as well with more color, more definition, that kind of thing. And this area extends out past this spot. And then we've got a darker shadow right over here. There we go. Okay. Now, take a look here. Oh, I see what I did. Oh, good deal, Rosalind. Well, thanks for joining. Thanks for being out here. So we will catch up with you soon. Awesome. Okay, so I took that little wrinkle out because it's a little bit lower. It needs to be a little lower. I think it's right in there instead. Okay. I made all of that just a little bit darker for the moment. Now I'm going to lighten it up. There we go. Okay. Clean that up just a little bit. There's where I like the little circles right in here. That helps sometimes. Okay. Now I can use this sticky putty again. I keep getting off the frame. I apologize for that with my head. So I don't know how important that is, but all right. So this is lighter right here. And then I feel like this comes out this way and then moves back. You see how much more that sticky putty takes off than the kneaded eraser. They're both very good at what they do. Okay, let me go back over here. Use that sticky putty right there. Okay. Now, add some of that back right in there. Okay. Hey, Lori. Good question, Lori. So Lori's asking about the beginning of the drawing. If you go back to, sorry, I bumped the camera. If you go back to, I think it was the one last week. I can't remember the date of that now. So this is our second session of this. The one last week I started. Okay. So this is colored pencil. This is a colored pencil full rendered drawing. Will be. It's not yet, right? But so the way I started this time, I don't start this way every time, but I used a light box equivalent. I want to say light box, but I traced a little outline for certain features, and now I'm shading those areas. So when you're talking about learning portraiture and learning how to freehand portrait drawing, and we're talking about something I go over extensively in the face value course, the ultimate colored pencil drawing course, colored pencil portrait drawing course. And inside there, I teach how to use a Riley method, how to use a Loomis method, and the Asaro head, and we're using graphite. So that's a different skill, right? I don't always, and I teach you how to freehand draw portraits in colored pencil as well. But I will tell you that if you're wanting to just get started on drawing your portrait in colored pencil, you don't always have to freehand draw that portrait to get started on shading it. Is tracing going to help you to be better at freehand drawing? No, it's not going to help you get better at it, but it'll get you past that hurdle at the beginning. In that course, though, I go way deeper into how to start freehand drawing and to do that with colored pencil. but we start with graphite because that's, a more forgiving medium. It's a good place to start. But anyway, sorry for the long, protracted answer to your simple question. I didn't start with a particular feature then, because I started with the entire drawing mapped out, right? So I start with a little line drawing map. And then what I did last week is I worked on the nose. So if you want to call that the feature, then that's what I did. I worked on that nose first. And then today I worked on the mouth and then the eyes right now. So good question, though. Very good question. You guys have the best questions this morning, I'll tell you. Love it. So let's see here. Yeah, if you skip the skills of learning how to freehand draw, then in my opinion, um, you can cause some problems or some issues for yourself later on. No, you're welcome, Lori. Thanks for the good question. Okay. That darker net area. Okay, let's see here. One way to help yourself get better, though, at freehand drawing and to wean yourself off of just using like a light box or something like that, or a projector or something, if that's your goal, if you're wanting to just freehand draw, then would be one method or technique to use would be to do a modified line drawing from a projector or a light box. And that is to just trace the outline. That's all of the head, and then fill in the details with your freehand skills. Um, and you will get better at it. The more you draw, the better you get at freehand skills. And if you don't have, any skills at all to freehand draw, then you can't even shade, um, because you're going to struggle with that, right? So you're building up skills a little bit anyway. I've had people, um, try to counter that or argue with that, but if I don't know how to shade something, then I can't observe and I can't see where even a line drawing makes sense. So if I'm given the line drawing, and I know some artists who teach do that, they just give you the line drawing, and then they say, go ahead and draw from that. Well, if you don't learn how to even create that line drawing, but even if you are given the line drawing, you can still have problems in your structural problems in your drawing, right? Because you have to know something about how to fill in all that shading. It doesn't just happen, on its own, right? It makes sense, I hope. And I'm not directing that directly at you, Lori. It's just you help me talk about it a little bit. It's something I like to talk about a lot. Okay. take a look again here and see what we need to do. Shade that down just a little bit. There's a slight rotation on this head, not much, just a little bit. Something that I do want to consider and think about as I keep progressing and working more towards getting all the values in the right spot. Okay. I like to look at it over there on my monitor to see what we're looking like. Okay. Okay, we'll put a little bit of the eyebrow in here, that bottom side. I want to make sure I hold the pencil correctly to be able to make more exact marks. If I forget what I'm doing and I'm just holding the pencil like this to shade, but I'm wanting some exact marks, then I'm going to have problems. We start with those eyebrow hairs somewhere over here. There's a little bit of a separation there between where some of these eyebrow hairs are more clustered together and where this area has a few isolated hairs over here. Okay, let me pull some in over here. And then right there in the middle, they kind of go together. I can just put a little bit of that right there with this bottom side. It'll be right in there somewhere. So it's probably close enough at the moment. And we might have gone up a little bit too high right there. But now I'm going to add just a little bit of my shading. Indicate where some of my hair is over here. And I put a little bit of this shading in here. Give me a little bit of, it'll give me a little bit of context. All right, so then down here, there's part of the face. Let's take a look at it. I have a little bit of my outline over here, so I can go ahead and fill that in. And on this side as well. Over here. Not real sure, but probably somewhere in there. Somewhere like that. So we're going to add a little bit of this shading over here. And then we'll try to stop. My goodness, I can't believe I went this long. Sometimes that's the way it goes. Okay. I'm going to be very, very careful at the beginning that I don't press too hard in this new area. It's a new area because I haven't put any pencil marks on it yet. Okay. Now, really, all I've done is just sort of indicated that this area is in shadow, right? That's it. There's not really any definition over here. I don't know exactly where all this shading should occur, but I've at least dedicated part of this area to some darker value shading over here. Okay. Now, the feel of the paper is so different in areas that you've already got quite a bit of pencil down in versus those areas where, you've got brand new pencil strokes on. So different. There's something really exciting about moving the pencil in areas where you've already established many layers, multiple layers, like right in here versus over here. There's a completely different feel to it. All right. Well, I was going to stop, but now I'm looking at this, and I want to make sure that I at least fill that part in. Get that established right up there. So where this shadow starts to turn and there's light reflected on that upper eyelid. I want to make sure I at least have that in here. So at the beginning, this needs to be a lot darker. So we're not going to worry about that at the moment. But I'm going to shade this middle area, the little pinnacle of this area right here in the upper eyelid. And then I'll remove some of that with my eraser. Okay. So it's very subtle. There's not a lot. It's not a real bright head highlight right here. So I don't want to make it look very, very bright. And I don't want it to be in competition with this area right here. So everything above that crease is going to be very, very, very subtle. It may look like there's hardly even a highlight there, but the more we increase the dark value over here, the brighter that will appear. Same is true with the eyebrow. The more we increase the darkness over there, that eyebrow, the brighter that will look. And this shadow right here on the side plane of the nose, same thing is true. This is going to be one of the darkest areas. So that will help create that structure that we need in place there. I keep hitting this camera. All right, guys. Thanks for joining today. Really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel over on YouTube, if that's where you are, then be sure and do that. If you like the video, then click the like button and tell me that you like it. All right. I appreciate that. Just by clicking that like button, you're helping me out quite a bit. All right. I will see you next week on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's when I start this particular live stream. Tonight, I'll be live streaming around 9 o'clock, working on my self-portrait. So hopefully we'll be able to see some of you at that time. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Take care.